Can I get some reacts so that I know that you're here? All right. So we have more attendees for today. So for those of you who are just joining the SBP sessions for English today, welcome. So today is our third day for the language review sessions. So during the first day, we talked about grammar. And then the second day, we talked about words. And then this day, of course, we're going to put the words together to form sentences. So we're going to brush up on our knowledge of sentences and how we can better write sentences. So as we would recall, sentences are a group of words that can express a complete thought or idea. And of course, as we remember from our perhaps grade school or high school lessons, a sentence would contain a subject and a predicate. Again, how do we differentiate between a subject and a predicate? How do we know that this is a subject and then this is a predicate? Yes, Gabriel.
Hello po. The subject is what's being talked about in the
Mhm.
sentence, and the predicate is what talks about the subject.
Right, correct. Thank you, Gabriel. So the subject is the topic, right? That's what has been mentioned, and the predicate is what the subject is all about. It is what talks about the subject, is what Angie also has shared. Okay. So again, for the rest of you, if you don't want to open your microphones, you can also just use the chat feature of Zoom to participate. All right. So a sentence has to have a subject and a predicate. Now, when we talk about sentences, we have sentence classifications occur according to verbal expression of purpose. So again, a sentence can be a statement. So when you say a statement, it's simply informative, stating something, diba? So ito yung tinatawag natin, otherwise known as, ano nga ang ibang tawag natin for this kind of sentence, correct? So declarative sentences. Okay? So when you say, this is an English class, so that is a declarative sentence. And then you also have questions, otherwise known as, what do we call? Sentences that ask questions, correct? So interrogative sentences. So interrogative sentences can be yes or no questions. So these are answerable by yes or no. Are you happy today? So that's answerable by yes or no. Are you interested to learn? And then you also have the tag questions. What are tag questions? So these are sentences with a statement plus a mini question in the end. So normally we ask tag questions for confirmation. So if you say, for example, you are happy. So again, stated declaratively, are you happy? And then that would be followed by a mini question. Aren't you? You are happy, aren't you? So the basic structure for your tag questions would be a positive statement plus a negative tag or vice versa. And then you have the interrogative word questions. What are the interrogative word questions? Or what are the interrogative words in English? Okay, so we have, oh yeah, Gabriel. So Gabriel's raising his hand.
What, where, how, who? Yeah.
That's right. So simply like what the others have also mentioned using chat. So these would be the 5 W's, right? And the 1 H. So who, what, when, where, why, and then how. And then of course, you also have the request and command, otherwise known as, correct, imperative sentences. So when the sentence contains a command or a request, that would be an imperative sentence. Okay, now, of course, when you look at a sentence, you don't just look at say, for example, the punctuation mark in a sentence. So if somebody tells you, can you pass me the salt? How would you consider that sentence overall? Is it an interrogative sentence or is it a imperative sentence? Say somebody tells you, can you pass me the salt? Can you give me some of your food? May I request for a statement? That's right. So again, the basic punctuation that is in a sentence does not necessarily tell us the purpose of that sentence. So even if it ends in a question mark, di ba, pag sinabihan ka, can you pass me the salt? It's not exactly just answerable by yes or no. There is in fact a request or even a command in that particular sentence. And then finally, you have exclamation, otherwise known as, from the term itself, correct? Exclamatory. So what is the purpose of this particular sentence? Right. So it expresses a strong feeling or emotion. So, for example, some of your interjections, as we've talked about last meeting, can form part of your exclamatory sentences. It hurts, diba? So merong feelings, merong strong feelings or emotions. Now, take a look at this sentence. Anna walked across the kitchen to the pantry. She opened the right-hand cupboard. She retrieved a tin of baked beans. She looked at the expiry date. She discovered that it went out of date in June. She thought for a moment, then decided to risk it. What do you think about this sentence? Is it grammatical? Grammatical ba yung sentence? First, let's answer that. Is it grammatical? Tama naman ba? Does it adhere to grammatical rules, this paragraph? Does it? Okay, so we get react saying that yes, it does adhere to grammatical rules. Di ba? May napapansin ba kayong error? Tama naman, di ba? So, yung tenses, tama. A subject-verb agreement, the use of pronouns. So, it follows the pronoun antecedent agreement, subject-verb agreement, all correct. But, okay, so as some of you has mentioned, it's repetitive. The flow can be improved because it doesn't flow smoothly. What makes it not flow smoothly? Bakit nga ba siya hindi magandang pakinggan? Why doesn't sound wrong, di ba, in a sense? It lacks signal words and perhaps transitions to that effect. Connecting words between the sentences. And of course, because that's right. So somebody says it follows the exact same sentence structure for each sentence. So normally, when we write in this manner, although it is grammatical, it is very monotonous. When I say monotonous, di ba, walang variation sa sentence structure. So that's why, even though we feel like it's a very basic English concept, sentence structure is in fact very important to make your writing more interesting. So in English, we have four sentence structures known as simple, compound, complex, and then compound complex. Now, what is the difference between each sentence structure? The first one, what is a simple sentence made up of? Ano ang meron sa isang simple sentence? Right, so you have the subject and the predicate, yes. But of course, all of the sentences will have a subject and a predicate. Okay, but in terms of clauses, again, when we differentiate between sentence structures, what we are pertaining to actually would be the difference in terms of the presence of dependent and independent clauses. So for a simple sentence, you only have one clause, and that clause is an independent clause. An independent clause can stand on its own. So as you can see here, you have the example, English and Filipino are both official languages in the Philippines. And then the second example, English is the language of business, and the medium of instruction in most universities. So here we have a case of here we have a case for the first example. You have, we call this a plural subject, di ba? Meron kang English and Filipino. Okay, and then here, for the second one, it's a longer sentence, but it doesn't mean that it's no longer a simple sentence. So here you just have a plural predicate. It is the language of business and also the medium of instruction in most universities. Overall, it's still one independent clause. Okay, and then for the compound sentence, what do you have in a compound sentence? Two independent clauses, correct? And they are joined by, how do we form compound sentences? Conjunctions. Specifically, what type of conjunction? Coordinating conjunctions, correct. Okay, for compound, two independent clauses. And for you to join two independent clauses, you need coordinating conjunctions. And ano nga ang mnemonic natin for coordinating conjunctions? So in order for us to remember what these conjunctions are, fanboys, di ba? For and nor, but, or, yet, so. Okay? And then you have a complex sentence composed of, what is it composed of? What do we have in a complex sentence? Yes, Gabriel.
We have one independent and one dependent clause.
Correct. So we'll have one independent and one dependent clause. And in order for us to join one independent and one dependent clause, what do we use? What do we use? If for compound sentence, we use coordinating conjunctions. What about for complex sentence? Yeah, right. So we use subordinating conjunctions. And there are more subordinating conjunctions than there are coordinating conjunctions. So some examples of subordinating rather are because. What else can you think of? While, after, before, although, correct, though, it's also a subordinating conjunction. What else? What other examples can you think of? While, since, correct, since can also be used in lieu of because. So you have subordinating conjunctions pertaining to time, so such as before, after, for reason, since, because, during, until, correct. So as you can see here, let's take note that for compound sentences, in order for us to join two independent clauses, we include a comma, similar to what you can see here, before the coordinating conjunction. So whether you have here an and, or here in this case, a but or a yet, any of the fanboys, the grammatical structure would be to have a comma before the conjunction. So this is how we write a compound sentence. For complex sentence, the structure would be like this. So it's okay to start the sentence with your conjunction as long as it's written grammatically. So here, for example, you have because of the long holiday break, and then you have the students forgot the lessons previously. So you have because, which is a subordinating conjunction, which makes this clause a dependent clause. So why do we have a dependent and independent clause in a complex sentence? Why do we write in that manner? It has to do with what we are giving emphasis on. So in the case of a complex sentence, which has more emphasis, the dependent or the independent clause? What do we give more emphasis to? That's right. So that's why we form or we write it in this manner. The emphasis is actually on the independent clause because the independent clause can stand on its own. Di ba? Pwede mong tanggalin yung because of the long holiday break. Because the important message is, the important message here is that the students already forgot the lessons that they have previously discussed. We're adding the dependent clause to give it context. And nakalimutan nila because of the break. But ultimately, the main message has to do with that students forgetting the lesson. And so when we write or when we decide on a sentence structure, it doesn't just have to do with aesthetics, kumbaga, of your writing, but it has to do as well with the messages that you want to emphasize in writing. Now, you look at complex sentence, you have a dependent and independent clause. Meanwhile, if you have a compound sentence and you are coordinating two independent clauses, so that is because the two ideas are of equal importance. Diba? So dito, you want to emphasize that yes, the procession was very long, and that's why you're also emphasizing the fact that people are still choosing to join. Okay? And again, sentence structures are not just about being able to determine whether something is simple, compound, or complex. It has to do with decisions you make in writing in terms of ideas that you want to emphasize. And then finally, of course, you have the compound complex sentence, which is composed of, what do you have in a compound complex sentence? Take a look at the examples here. Okay, so in a compound complex sentence, that is in fact somewhat a combination of the compound and complex sentence. That's right. So you see both coordinating and subordinating conjunctions, which means that this final sentence structure has one dependent clause and at least two dependent clauses. So as you can see here, keep wishing for something that is independent. And when you have an opportunity to gratify your wishes, so this one with the presence of when becomes a dependent clause. Do not gratify them to the fill, so that's independent. So you may never become satiated with the presence of so, which is coordinating. That would be another independent clause. For the second example, although I love to go jogging, although would be your subordinating conjunction. So that makes the statement dependent. I couldn't afford to find the time lately. So that would be your independent clause. Then finally, you have a conjunction here, and then I haven't found a jogging body. So that would be another independent clause. Now, what the writing error could you run into if you're not careful when writing compound complex sentences? So that would be run-on sentences. What are run-on sentences? Ano nga yung run-on sentences na tinatawag natin? So this is an error that we frequently see in writing. So when you have, that's right. So when you have two or more independent clauses that are connected improperly because you are trying to connect different ideas in one sentence, you might find yourself running or committing this error, diba, yung run-on sentences. This is when you have an improper conjunction, or this is when you have two ideas in a sentence that could be better written as two different sentences. So sometimes in our attempt to rewrite our thoughts into just one sentence, you end up running or you end up committing the error of run-on sentences. So again, make sure to use the proper conjunctions and to use the proper sentence structure whenever you are writing. So just to, again, exercise our minds when it comes to sentence structure, let's open exercise 1 on Canvas. So you should be able to see this. You are simply to identify the pattern, simple, complex, compound, or compound complex. So again, you're allowed to annotate on Canvas itself, or you can download the file, annotate on your own device, and then upload the file back on Canvas once you're done answering. Are you able to access exercise 1? All right, so I'll give you, this is a very short activity just to really brush up on our review for sentence structure. There are only 15 items, so I'll give you 10 minutes to answer this particular activity. It's 10:27, let's answer by 10:37. Okay, so please access exercise 1. Can I see some react so that I know you're back here? Okay. So let's answer again. The exercise is very simple. All you have to do would be to identify the sentence structure or the pattern, sentence pattern for each of the sentence. Number 1 would be, what do we have here?
Compound.
That's right. So this one is compound. You have 2 independent clauses and then it's connected by a coordinating conjunction. Again, take note of how it's written. This is how we write a compound sentence. Number 2, what is this? Right, so
Simple.
this is a simple sentence, correct. Number 3,
Complex.
that's right. So this is a complex sentence. Number 3 is a complex sentence. So you don't see a comma, you don't see a delineation between the 2 clauses. You don't see a physical separation, kumbaga, because you don't really see a comma in some complex sentence. As you can see here, Max was only 18. That would be your independent clause. Tas merong when he earned his first million. Number 4,
Simple.
simple, correct. 5,
Compound. Complex.
okay, the man. Okay, here you have an intervening clause, diba? Whom I have never seen in my life. This is a dependent clause. The man, and then technically your sentence is, the man hugged me as if we were best friends. What kind of sentence is that? That's right. So this is only
Complex.
a complex sentence. Whom I have never seen in my life is in fact describing the man. But the main idea has to do with the man hugging this person as if they were best friends. Number 6, when Carla was a baby, what type of sentence is that? Right, so this is a compound complex. So you have a dependent clause and then 2 independent clauses. Number 7,
Simple.
simple, correct. So you only, you happen to have different books here or different authors. Number 8, we visited New York. This is a compound sentence, correct. All right. Identify, so to continue, number 9, after being terribly sick, this is a compound complex sentence, correct. So you have after, dependent, independent, independent. Number 10, when he failed the exam, he became determined to study further, complex. So you have when he failed, so that would be your dependent and then independent. Number 11, complex. Okay, so you have dependent and independent. Number 12, simple, correct. Number 13, complex. So I am sure I'm going to pass all the exams. So that would be your independent since I studied hard last night. Number 14, my family went to the beach, compound. So here you have the word and. It's a coordinating conjunction. Number 15, the students are looking forward to finishing their degree, passing the board, and starting their own business, right? So this is a simple sentence. You only have one subject, and while you have multiple actions happening here, it is in fact just one idea. But these are the things that the students are looking forward to doing. And in relation to this particular sentence, this is a rule that we follow in writing sentences. We have to make sure that the structure remains constant all throughout. So a way to ensure coherence in writing is to, what do we call that? What is the term we use for that? Ano yung term natin sa English? Correct. Parallelism. Okay, so here is there parallelism here? Finishing the degree, di ba? Passing the board and starting their own businesses. So parallel, bakit? Because it's the structure is consistent all throughout. That's right. So we're using the progressive form of the verb or the ing form of the verb. So that is a way to maintain coherence in writing sentences. That would be parallelism. And then, of course, you also want consistent point of view. So when you say consistent point of view in writing or in English, what does that mean? Anong ibig sabihin ng consistent point of view? So when you say consistent point of view, that's right. So it may have to do with the presence of your pronouns and the presence or the presence of pronoun antecedent agreement. So that's why we say in writing that we have to be careful in terms of any shifts that may happen in writing. So in other words, shifting person here for number 1 means changing from first person to third person nouns or pronouns, or from second to third person without a logical reason. So in writing, this is something that we need to avoid unless it is in fact a structural decision for writing. So for example, you start with the we perspective. We are going to do this and that, and then suddenly in writing naging you perspective na siya. So bakit ganon, diba? Is it necessary in writing? Because that would in fact cause confusion sa inyong audience. So that's something that we need to be careful about. Also subject. Okay, so what are you talking to? For example, when we repeatedly use the word it, what does it actually refer to? Diba? As a pronoun, that's something that we also have to be careful sa paggamit. Then the number, of course, that's very important because say the subject should agree again with the subject should agree with the verb, so subject verb agreement. And then of course you have tenses as well. So from past tense, naging present tense bigla. So these are all of the things that we need to consider whenever we are writing. And then of course, we also have voices in English. Again, what are the voices in English? Whenever we are writing in English, ano yung voices natin? The passive and active. How do we differentiate between the two? So when you have an active voice, if a sentence is written in the active voice, the subject is the doer of the action. So if you say, for example, Anna baked the cake, is that active or passive? Anna
Active.
baked the cake, that's active, right? If you say the cake was baked by Anna, so that would be passive. Now the question is, what is this for? Why do we need to know the active and passive voices? It doesn't just have to do with knowing where the subject should be written. Is it going to be written as the doer of the action? Or is it going to be written as the receiver of the action? So hindi lang ganun. We don't look at all of these grammatical way or grammatical rules in that manner. We need to be able to identify how exactly do we use them. That's right. So it depends on what you're trying to emphasize. So for example, if you say Anna baked the cake, you want to place emphasis on Anna, who is the doer of the action. However, if you present it in the passive voice, the cake was baked by Anna, the emphasis is placed on the cake. In English or in writing in general, especially when it comes to, say, for example, business writing, most of the time we use the passive voice to hide the doer of the action or to de-emphasize the doer of the action. For example, you often see institutions or organizations saying an error was committed or a miscommunication happened. So in that case, is that a full sentence when you say a miscommunication happened or an error took place? Is that a sentence? It's a sentence, right? But do you see the doer in that sentence? We don't see the doer, right? Because we want to de-emphasize that the error was committed by a specific person, by a specific group, or by a specific institution. So in fact, overall, you are removing the doer altogether. So nagiging implicit na yung presentation ng doer. So again, when writing, hindi or when talking about all of these rules, we don't just talk about them theoretically. We need to see exactly how we plan to use them whenever we are writing or even speaking or using English in general as a way to communicate. Okay? Let's take a look at these examples for parallelism or for achieving coherence. For number 1, a sandwich and an orange juice. So here you have articles to differentiate between the two breakfast items, sandwich and orange juice. Okay? Had their first trip abroad last summer. So makikita natin dito yung paggamit ng had because you have a time element here, last summer. So parallelism, correct. And then here also loves TV shows such as Breaking Bad, Game of Thrones, and Suits. So I included the sentence to emphasize the use of the serial comma. They use serial comma or otherwise called the Oxford comma. They use that in writing. Right. So in writing, while there are people and some linguists perhaps who believe that okay lang na hindi gamitin yung serial comma, but take a look at the sentence, right? It becomes even clearer exactly the itemization in this sentence because of your Oxford comma. Again, when I say Oxford comma, that would be your serial comma. May iba kasi nagsusulat, wala ng comma between Game of Thrones and Suits. But if you look at this sentence, di ba very clear yung pag-break mo ng items mo sa sentences. Breaking Bad, Game of Thrones, and Suits. Because without the presence of the second comma, pwede siyang Game of Thrones and Suits. Pwede naman siyang maging title ng isang show, di ba? Game of Thrones and Suits. So pwede siyang open to misinterpretation. So that's why I always suggest to my students to use the Oxford comma instead for clarity. Okay, and perhaps that is also something that you can use whenever you are writing. Okay? So, since there is no better way to review parallelism than to in fact do it, let's open exercise 2 for an activity on parallelism and passive and active voice. Can you open exercise 2 and check if you can see these items? Is it the same? Exercise 2. Okay, so please answer exercise 2. This one is a bit longer because meron pang rewriting the sentence. So I'll give you 15 minutes for this. So when I say rewrite the sentence, you don't have to include the entirety of the sentence. So you can just identify which one is the error and then correct that in order to make the sentence parallel. Okay, so again, just identify the error, correct the error to make the sentence parallel. So you have 15 minutes. Let's answer at 11:05. So again, this is your exercise number 2. So that you're back. Are you back here? All right, so okay, let's answer the activity. All right, so for the parallelism activity, here you have, okay, so for number one, how do we best correct the sentence? That's right. So you don't have to rewrite the sentence in its entirety. So you can just identify. So say in-underline mo yung error, tapos in-identify mo kung paano papalitan. Yeah, that's okay for as long as we're able to make it parallel. Okay, so for number one, okay, so we have answers already sa chat. So here you have, di ba? You have pictures. So the pronoun should be there. The pictures of the best employees had their title printed, had their titles, correct, printed below. O pwede mo rin naman gawing singular lahat kung gusto mo, the picture of the best employees. Kasi pwede naman makakasama sila sa isang picture, had its title printed below. So their titles could also be correct. Okay, so let's not, as much as possible, let's not change the idea of the sentence. Number two, Mia is dependable and hard. Okay, here we have to make it parallel. So hindi natin pwedeng tanggalin lang yung article. Mia is dependable and because dependable is what? Anong part of speech category nga ng dependable? Adjective. So should be hardworking. So parallelism tells us that we need to use the same part of speech category doon sa mga gagamitin nating words. So dependable and hardworking. Number three, the game had barely begun before the rain. So what tense is that? Okay, look at the tense. What is the tense of the initial structure? The initial phrase. The game had barely begun. Okay, past, what type, anong klaseng past tense to? Had begun. Diba? You have begin, began as a simple past tense. So this is past perfect. Diba? Meron kang past participle. So ngayon, how do you make it consistent? The game had barely begun before the rain. Okay. Fell. Is that the most consistent that we can do at this point? The game had barely begun before the rain fell. Okay, so the game had barely begun when before the rain. Yes, so the best effort to make it consistently parallel would be to say had fallen. But the game had barely because you're using before. The game had barely begun before the rain had fallen. So technically you're using the same tense, which is the past perfect tense. You're using a past participle in this particular sentence. Number four, Chevrolet's new design. So is there something to correct? What is the error to correct in this sentence to make it more parallel? More for its appearance, correct, than for its performance. For its appearance, for its performance. So this is actually the parallel version or the version with correct parallelism. I find the novel interesting and again, well written, correct. So again, same part of speech category, adjective to adjective. Well written should be a compound word. Then you connect it using a hyphen. I want an apple. Correct. And a sandwich for breakfast. Again, when you are itemizing in a sentence, make sure to use proper articles for those. For example, in writing, when you say the manager and owner, that would be different from saying the manager and the owner. Diba? For the first phrase, the manager and owner, that means, is it the same person? When you say the manager and owner, is it the same person? Diba? It's the same person kasi hindi mo siya sineseparate. But when you say the manager and the owner attended the party. So that means, in that case, the manager and the owner are two separate entities. But when you say the manager and owner attended the party, diba? These are just, this is a case where the manager and owner would be the same person. So again, in writing, that is very important. And normally, your AI tool can really detect that for you because only you as the writer would know the context, diba? Of whatever it is that you're writing. Especially if the verb that you're using is, say, in past tense. We don't really differentiate between a singular or plural na verb pag in past tense siya. So say the verb is attended, pareho pa rin siya attended. But it allows your reader to determine exactly who you are talking about. So please also be mindful of that when writing. Number 7, so may sumagot na dito. Pastas with hanging heads, drooping shoulders, and shuffling feet. So again, look at the way the sentence structured by using the ing form, hanging, drooping. So we use shuffling. We went to a party, drinking a lot and danced all night. We went to a party, so all past tense, drank a lot and danced all night. Okay, number 9. How can we change this sentence to make it parallel? To exercise regularly and to eat well. Correct. Again, kailangan separate yon. To exercise regularly and to eat well. Because these are two separate activities. If you say to exercise regularly and eat well, again, you're lumping them up in one category. Or two things I have trouble doing. Number 10, or kung pwede mo rin naman siyang baguhin, kung gusto mong i-follow yung structure ng eating well, pwede mo rin sabihin exercising regularly and eating well. Diba? Pwede rin yun. Or two things I have trouble doing. Number 10, the couple decided to get married and to spend their honeymoon in Hawaii. And to get married. But these are two separate activities. They got married, and then after they got married, they spent their honeymoon in Hawaii. So to get married and to spend their honeymoon in Hawaii. My hobbies include dancing, baking, and writing stories. Again, to emphasize, that is use the Oxford comma for serialization. So sineserialize na, mayroon tayong serial items. My mother is kind, understanding, and caring. So again, we want to use the same part of speech category. Here in this case, you have adjectives. One day, Carl suggested, so how can we correct the sentence? How can we make it more suggested? To paint, okay, suggested to paint or sailboat and to start to practice for the race. Correct. Suggested. So suggested yung verb. Tapos, ito yung action na gagawin. Ano ba yung nakaakibat sa suggestion? To paint and to start to practice for the race. Number 14, Jean scooped up the butter with his finger. And then what can we do to the rest of the sentence? Tasted it and made a face. Correct. Number 15. Mr. Wolf was aware of Walt's lack of experience. Dito, makikita natin na totally nabago yung structure and that he was not ready for promotion. So how can we rewrite the sentence to make it parallel? How did you revise the sentence? Right, so you can say was aware of Walt's a lack of experience, as somebody said. Mr. Wolf was aware of Walt's lack of experience and unreadiness for promotion. So kung gagamitin natin yung unreadiness, kung saan ginamitan natin ng affixes, yung word, to express the meaning that you want to express, can we also do that for lack of experience? So what ano ang pwede nating, yan. So parallel doon, di ba, ang gamitin natin, Mr. Wolf was aware of Walt's inexperience and unreadiness for promotion. Isn't that the most simple way and also the most efficient way to say the same thing without having to sound awkward in this sentence? Inexperience without the D. Lack of Walt's inexperience. So, hindi siya verb. And unreadiness for promotion. So, we are simply describing Walt's status at work. Okay? Let's look at the sentences. So, all of these are written in passive voice. And let's try to rewrite them to active voice. So, number 1 would be, the critics praise the film for its honesty. Again, whenever we are determining if we want to write, whether we want to write in the passive or active voice, again, it's about determining which aspect of the sentence would we like to emphasize. So the new film is praised. So here the focus is on the film. If you turn it to active voice, we're focusing on the critics and their assessment of the film. Number 2, his peers ridiculed his bizarre behavior. So can we see here that the change of voice overhauls the sentence in its entirety. When I say overhaul, I mean the meaning and even the connotations that we can derive from the sentence. Look at this one. His bizarre behavior was ridiculed by his peers. This sentence written in this manner makes it seem or really highlights the idea that the behavior is bizarre. Diba? Pero, pag gagawin mo siyang active voice, makikita natin na ang highlight ay sa mga tao who are doing the ridiculing. Okay? Number 3, the mayor will give the certificate to the winner. Number 4, the committee. Number 4, the committee will read, or the committee, has read the letter. And number 5, the new manager is being introduced by Mike. Mike will introduce the new manager. Or Mike is introducing the new manager. Okay, correct. So let's just go over this more. So this is actually what's labeled exercise 3 on Canvas, but let's just do it real time so we can finish our discussion for today. So again, I encourage your participation. So as you are doing now, send your answers sa chat so we can go over these items as well. So parallel form, but also of course, yung pag-adhere sa grammatical rules. So number 1, you and me will paint the town red. So what is supposed to be replaced in this sentence? Correct. So should be, okay. So strictly speaking, should be you and I will paint the town red. Ngayon, siguro isipin natin, If I were to rewrite it, palitan ko kaya ng we. Pero yung we kasi, pwedeng iba yung composition niya. Yung you and I kasi, very specific siya. Ikaw lang at ako, di ba? Kung baga sa Filipino. Yung we kasi can be composed of more than just you and I. So, pwedeng may kasama ka pang ibang tao. So, again, it has to do with the meaning, with the context of what you are writing. So, these are, again, decisions that you need to make in writing. So, yung you and me ba, replaceable siya ng we? Is it really replaceable by we? Or is it really just you and I? Number 2, many professions and occupations need some knowledge of English, correct? Need. Okay, the industries also depends on science and technology. Number 3 is depend, correct. And you know what? Perhaps this might seem funny to you, especially if you are quite knowledgeable when it comes to grammar. But this is an error that we encounter in a lot of people whenever a question is asked and the question is phrased in this manner. So normally, since may do na siya dito na verb, tapos dito rin, may nandito yung main action word. So dito minsan nagkakamali, either dinadagdagan ng S o walang S. So pag question, di ba, ang binabago natin ay yung verb sa unahan, yung do or does. And then, base form lang ng verb yung nilalagay natin. Technology relies heavily on the use of measurement. So ito yung sabi natin, tag question. Doesn't it? Correct. Reading is one of the most worthwhile activities. So when we have a sentence written in this manner, one of the most, and then your description, and then the noun. So the noun has to be plural. And then number 6, so what error can you see here? Were given. So dito naman, normally, yung mga variation, yung mga words that only has slight variations in the spelling. One global strategy. Okay, strategy, not strategies. Number 8. The traveler stopped at the junction. Where? So we use where, W-H-E-R-E. And by the way, for number 7, somebody pointed out correct. So aside from strategy, it's to stabilize without the depopulation. Then for number 8, when should be where? And then for number 9, what error can you see in the sentence? Okay, so here, repeat, di ba? Meron siyang redundancy. So we can simply say, please repeat what you said. Or if you want, or you can also say, please say that again. But repeat and again would be repetitive. Number 10, I came, I saw, I conquered, so all past. The law of nature differs from the law of society. So what do we use here? Sa tag question. The law of nature differs from the law of society. Do we use don't they or doesn't it? Okay, so bakit doesn't it? Kasi ang pinag-uusapan natin ay law of nature. And in the statement, sinasabi lang natin na nagdi-differ ang law of nature sa law of society. And we're talking about the law in singular form. So dapat doesn't it. Number 12, how does technology affect the quality of life? Again, this is a common error we see in question or in interrogative sentences. So please take note of how we form our verbs in interrogative sentences. Number 13, most of modern technologies are physics-based and energy-dependent. When we talk of energy, we do not. So bakit we do not? Parallel siya sa when we talk of energy, we do not help but consider its interaction with matter. Number 15, we are delighted that we received, correct? Again, following the structure of the first part, receive an invitation to the conference. That is right. Now, for the final part of our discussion, so when we write, of course, our first draft, it's not always the final draft, right? So when we reread our work, we sometimes find ourselves going through our sentences and realizing that 2 or 3 of our sentences can in fact be combined. And why do we combine sentences? Because we want to establish relationships, to highlight important ideas, and of course, for sentence variation, and also style. So writing is not just about adhering to grammar, but also about staying true to a certain extent to your style of and tone of writing. Okay, and what contributes to all of these can be your ability to effectively combine sentence. And combining sentence in English can show your mastery of grammar. So like what has been mentioned a while ago, when we talk about sentence structures, there are 2 ways to combine a sentence. 2 simple ways, which are coordination, using, again, when we coordinate, what do we use? We use, anong ginagamit natin for coordination? For your compound sentence, we use coordinating conjunction. So again, that would be your fan boys. Remember, again, for coordination, that we are doing that because we believe in writing that the ideas that we are combining are of equal importance. So for example, we could watch How to Get Away with Murder. They could watch Orphan Black. We could, so pwede mo siyang ipag-combine na lang. But ginagamitan natin siya ng coordinating conjunction precisely because they are of equal importance. Okay, again, these are the conjunctions we use for coordination. On the other hand, we use subordinating conjunctions for when we want to connect ideas that are not of equal rank or importance. So the more important idea is contained in the independent clause. So if you can see here, more college students are biking, walking, or carpooling because the price of gasoline is continuing to rise. And so the independent clause is still the main sentence because it has a complete thought. And then you have the subordinate clause. We call it the subordinate clause because it contains a subordinating conjunction and it doesn't express a complete thought because the price of gasoline is continuing to rise. In other words, pwede nating tanggalin yung because na part and the sentence will still be able to stand on its own. So here we give more emphasis to more college students and what they are doing. So there are plenty of subordinating conjunctions in English. To go over them quickly, we have subordinating conjunctions used to show the element of time. So you can see here, after, as soon as long as, before. So again, we're just going over this quickly because I'm sure that you are familiar with them and you have used them in writing. But just to really drive home the point, these are the conjunctions you can use when writing, when subordinating. And then you have conjunctions to show place, like where or wherever. Manner, like as though, the way. And then you have purpose. And then you have cause or reason, as, since, because. And then you have result. Dito, so that they come in pairs. He was so drunk that he could hardly get out of his chair. And then here you have contrast. Although, even though, even if, was. So may mga overlaps yung examples, but you can see here that you have plenty of subordinating conjunctions to choose from when you choose to subordinate to do subordination in sentences. And then finally, another way to combine the sentences is what we call compression. When you say compression, you have multiple sentences and they are related in terms of the idea, and you want to combine them in one sentence. Take a look at this. Batman lurked behind the shadows. His senses are keen to any sign of the crime. So how can we compress the senses? This sentence. Batman insert as. Alin yung lalagyan natin ng as? So we can say Batman lurked behind the shadows. Okay, so pwede mo sabihin with his senses keen to any sign of crime. Pwede mo rin sabihin Batman, comma, whose senses are keen to any sign of another crime, comma, lurk behind the shadows. So when we say we are compressing, what we want to do is to put together multiple sentences, multiple related sentences in one sentence. Okay, let's take a look at here. The girl from the library spoke about linguistic diversity and universality. But somehow you want to insert the idea that she has rainbow hair. Okay? So meron ka ditong restrictive clause. So it can restrict your sentence. So paano siya ilalagay, 'di ba? Itong only she has rainbow hair, if you were to write it as a separate sentence, hindi na siya belong talaga doon sa idea na gusto mong iparating. So what should we do instead? Is it something that you need to include? So, 'di ba? Again, you have to make a decision whether it's something that you want to include. Now, if that's something that you actually want to include and need to include for that matter, then you can say something like, the girl from the library who has rainbow hair spoke about linguistic diversity and universality. Okay? Pero pwede rin naman natin, tingnan to, the girl smiled at me, she has rainbow hair. So dito non-restrictive siya kasi sineseparate natin siya. Nagiging na siyang intervening clause in this sense. The girl who has a rainbow hair smiled at me. Okay, so here's another example for compression. There is a cat. The cat is approaching its owner. The cat hopes for a kitty treat. So how can we compress this sentence so that both of the ideas, which are related in any way, there are both about the cat. So paano natin sabihin to? Okay, so it has to do with the cat hoping for a kitty treat, kaya niya ina-approach yung owner niya. So there are multiple ways to do this. The cat is approaching its owner, comma, the cat is approaching its owner, comma, hoping for a kitty treat. Yes, we can write it in that manner. You can also write it in this manner. The cat approaching its owner hopes for a kitty treat. Or you can also write it, as some of you has mentioned, the cat hoping for a kitty treat approaches its owner. Diba? Again, depending on which part of the sentence you want to emphasize on. Is it about the cat approaching the owner with the reason of wanting to have a kitty treat? Or is it about the cat hoping for a kitty treat? That's why the cat approached the owner. Again, all of these little things can matter a lot in writing because it can change. Kahit, di ba, subtle lang siya, pero it can change the meaning that you want to emphasize in writing. What about this one? Wonder Woman is a feminist icon. Wonder Woman first appeared in All Stars Comics number 8 in 1941. So, paano natin siya pwedeng i-rewrite? Okay, Wonder Woman. That's right. So, pwede natin sabihin, Wonder Woman, a feminist icon, first appeared in All-Star Comics? Or pwede naman natin sabihin Wonder Woman, who first appeared in All-Star Comics number 8, is a feminist icon. Okay? May nagtanong, kapag intervening na clause na ganyan, yung may cat, hindi na ba need na palitan yung parallelism? Dito, the cat approaching its owner hopes for a kitty treat. So, dito, hindi siya pwedeng approaches its owners hopes for a kitty treat because this one is an intervening clause. And a certain extent, you included it precisely because you want to describe what the cat is doing. So technically, the sentence here is just the cat hopes for a kitty treat. Diba? O kanina naman yung iba pang na-mention ng class, the cat hoping for a kitty treat approaches the owner. So doon naman makikita natin na ang independent clause talaga doon ay the cat approaches the owner. Oh, it's okay. You can send your answers via messages. If you wish, you can also raise your hand and I will call on you to answer any of the questions that I asked. So that's really more of student preference. I don't want to force you into opening your mics if you are unable to do so. That's right. So is it an exception to the rule? It really has more to do with what is the purpose of including that particular clause. Dito, di ba, hindi natin pwedeng sabihin the cat approaches its owner. Kasi kung gagawin mo siyang parallel, di sana isinulat na lang natin siya in this manner. The cat approaches the owner and hopes for a kitty treat. But if you write it in that manner, while it is parallel, ano masasabi niya sa sentence na yun? Di ba, it's parallel. The cat approaches its owner and hopes for a kitty treat. Ano masasabi niya? Is it parallel? The cat approaches its owner and hopes for a kitty treat. Parallel ba yun? Parallel ba siya? The cat approaches its owner and hopes for a kitty treat. Parallel ba? Okay, so it's parallel, right? But what can you say about that sentence in terms of the meaning that it's trying to convey? The cat approaches its owner and hopes for a kitty treat. Diba? Nasa same level of emphasis doon sa pag-approach at pag-hope na bibigyan siya ng kitty treat. However, when you look at it contextually, it doesn't really happen or it doesn't really happen in that manner, right? So dito makikita natin that when you're doing the compressing, mas nabibigyan mo ng nuances or ng nuance yung iyong sentence. Katulad nito, the cat approaching its owner, pero ang main idea mo ay because the cat is hoping for a kitty treat. Katulad naman ng ibang examples kanina, the cat hoping for a kitty treat approaches its owner. So in that sense, ang main sentence ko naman ay the cat approaches its owner. So di ba nakikita natin doon yung subtle nuances in writing. And again, whenever you are writing, you have to make all of these little decisions that could in fact impact the meaning that you want to convey in writing. And again, similar to the previous sessions, I keep emphasizing the idea that you have AI tools you can use nowadays, but the reality is that they can never really present all of these nuances in writing. Because again, that nuance is writing, derived yun sa humanness na activity ng pagsusulat, diba? Na what do you want to emphasize on? What do you want to emphasize? What subtle nuances do you want to include in writing? While your AI tool can determine kung may subject-verb agreement ba or wala, but at the end of the day, as the writer, you get to make the decisions, you get to write exactly what it is that you want to write. And no AI tool can do that for you. So that's why I always emphasize sa students ko na you are still the writer. So you don't allow yourself to be replaced by these tools. Okay? So since we don't have a lot of time, this is activity 4. Okay, and instead of let's just answer it real time so we can also finish already for the day. So let's just, again, if you want to go over the activities, we only answered exercise 1 and 2 for today, but all of the activities na na-mention sa class na hindi na natin sinagutan sa Canvas, ito ay ang exercise 3 and 4. So, ang sinagutan lang natin sa Canvas ay 1 and 2. Okay, so let's combine the sentence in each item. This one is very simple. So here, let's just rewrite the two sentences into just one sentence. So for the first part, let's do coordination. How can we coordinate the set of sentences for number 1? Leia is not punctual. Okay, so yeah, is that Gabriela? Is that correct?
Yes po.
Okay, go ahead.
Leia is not punctual, but she is an extremely hard worker. The conjunction is but.
That's right. So, but. Thank you, Gabriela. Aside from that, so that's correct. Aside from that, is there any other way to write or to create a sentence? Okay, so aside from but, according to Sophia, yes, Sophia. Sophia.
Leia is an extremely hard worker, yet she is not punctual.
Oh, pwede rin ganon, diba? She is an extremely hard worker, yet she is not punctual. Okay? Again, if you are using if you are using fanboys, coordinating conjunctions, in writing, kailangan meron tayong comma. Okay, so dahil meron tayong dalawang independent clauses. So this is the correct way to write. Okay? Okay, so again, coordination yung ginagawa natin. So hindi muna tayo gagamit ng subordinating conjunctions. Number 2, may sumagot na, he failed the exam. So he became determined to study harder. Correct. He failed the exam. So is there any other way we can say that? Yeah, Gabriel. Is it Gabriel? Gabriel?
It's Gabriel, but most people just call me
Gabriel,
Gabby.
Gabby, okay.
Whatever works. You could also say, since he failed the exam, he became determined to study harder.
Yes. So you can say that if you are using, right, subordinating conjunction. So since for now we are using coordination, we can say he failed the exam, so he became determined to study harder. So somebody also said because and since. So again, because and since are subordinating conjunctions. So again, we use coordinating conjunctions if we see that both items are of equal importance. So we're highlighting them at the same time, and then we're going to use subordinating conjunctions if you want to focus instead on the independent clause. For the third one, I hate vegetables. And then here you can simply use a coordinating conjunction. But, correct. So I hate vegetables. Again, please use a comma, but. I hate vegetables, comma, but vegetables are good for my health. Again, in writing, coordinating, or in coordinating sentences, when you use coordinating conjunctions, don't forget the comma. This is what allows you, diba, to separate the two independent clauses in your sentences aside from your conjunction. So, syempre, hindi natin kakalimutan yung conjunction kasi ang tawag dun sa English ay comma splice. In other words, sineperate mo lang yung two independent clauses using a comma splice ang tawag doon. So, ang tama ay may comma ka and then the conjunction. Now, that makes it a coordination. Subordination naman. So, dito gamitan natin ng subordinating conjunctions. So, ano bang subordinating conjunction ang pwede natin gamitin for number 4? Again, you have different examples of a subordinating conjunction. So, in this case, in the case of number 4, ano yung pwede natin gamitin? She recovered from a severe illness. She decided to live life to the full. Fullest. Sorry for the error here. She decided to live life to the fullest. Okay, so pwedeng after she recovered from a severe illness. So after she recovered from a severe illness, she decided to live life to the fullest. Okay? Number 5, I was young. I dreamt of being the richest person in so pwede mo sabihin, when I was young, I dreamt of being the richest person in the world. Okay? Then very quickly, let's apply the correct conjunction. Nawala yung numbers, pero for let's still itemize starting from 1. So 1, blank, she is a thin. What can we use here? Although, aside from although, may iba pa bang pwede? Even though, ano pa? Though, right? Pwede natin gamitin yon. I had an unpleasant experience when I was in Thailand, correct. What about number 3? So dalawa ang kailangan mo dito. Okay, neither nor. Anong tawag sa neither nor? Sam neither phoned nor right after she left home. Anong tawag natin doon sa English? Ano yung tawag natin sa ganong klase ng conjunction? Either or, neither nor. Correlative conjunctions, correct. Diba? They go together. So correlative. The boss rejected the proposal because, aside from because, what else can we use? As, we can also say that, for, since he did not think it was cost effective. What about the final item? Go over your answers. Okay, and correct your mistakes. Aside from, and may iba ba tayong pwedeng gamitin? Conjunction ha, conjunction na pinag-uusapan natin. Go over your answers so that you can, pwede rin, so that you can. Okay, yung 2, may mga sumagot ng 2. Again, 2 is not a conjunction. What is 2? 2 is a preposition, correct. So since we're talking about conjunctions, the best answers would be what you have mentioned. And so kung gagamit tayo ng and, go over your answers, comma, and correct your mistakes. These are 2 independent clauses. Okay? And then finally, let's try compressing the following sentences into 1 sentence. Can you try it on your own before I give the answer? So you have 3 sentences here about Ho Chi Minh, which is formerly known as Saigon. If you're familiar, di ba? Kakashow lang ng Miss Saigon sa Philippines. Now, there are 3 sentences here and you want to compress it in 1 sentence. Okay, so Gabby wants to answer.
Ho Chi Minh City, comma, formerly known as Saigon, comma, is the largest city in Vietnam with a population of approximately 4 million.
Okay, so thank you, Gabby. So Gabby, nagkaroon siya ng intervening Ho Chi Minh, formerly known as Saigon, the largest city in Vietnam with a population of approximately 4 million people. If you take a look at here, you also see here that sentence, we want to make sentence to the main clause. So how else can we? So again, in writing, di ba, wala tayo laging one correct way lang to write. Di ba? There are multiple ways to write. Kaya nga, sauce siya, di ba? If 2 persons show up with exactly the same essay. So no matter what happens, diba, there are certain subtleties in writing na magkaiba yung tone natin, style. So dito, when it comes to compressing, since we are dealing with 3 different sentences, we want to combine it in 1. So we have 1 version already presented by Gabby. And then, so we also have other versions here. Ho Chi Minh City, formerly known as Saigon. Ayun nga, it's the largest city in Vietnam, so same. With a population of approximately 4 million people. Are there other ways, variations in which we can compress the 3 sentences in just 1 sentence? Meron pa bang iba? Oh, si Gabby. Gabby, you want to present another variation?
Ho Chi Minh City, formerly known as Saigon, has a population of approximately 4 million people, making it the largest city in Vietnam.
Okay, so pwede rin doon. Okay, so thank you. So doon naman, mas na-highlight yung the number of people there is in Ho Chi Minh City, which makes it the largest city in Vietnam. Okay, what about the others? Looking at all of the sentences here, can you think of other ways to rewrite all of them into 1 sentence? So again, ang pagsusulat, hindi lang isang objective na tama ang sagot, unless of course we're just dealing with subject-verb agreement. But even then, hindi lang iisa ang pwede mong baguhin, di ba? Kahit sa parallelism, pwedeng subject, pwedeng predicate, so that parallelism can be achieved. So looking at here, pwede mo ring sabihin, the largest city in Vietnam that is formerly known as Saigon has a population of approximately 4 million people. Again, we're able to retain all of the same ideas, but we have different ways. We can have different ways of compressing our sentences, again, depending on which we want to emphasize as our main clause. Okay? Somebody also suggested, formerly known as Miss Saigon, Ho Chi Minh City has a population of approximately 4 million people, making it the largest city in Vietnam, and that is also correct. Okay, and then somebody else said, with a population of 4 million people, Ho Chi Minh City, formerly known as Saigon, is the largest city in Vietnam. So dito naman, ang naging main clause natin ay Ho Chi Minh City being the largest city in Vietnam. Nakukuha ba natin yung concept, di ba, ng main clause? The way that you write it allows you to determine exactly which are you presenting as the main idea. So say, for example, somebody mentioned with a population of 4 million people, Ho Chi Minh City, formerly known as Saigon, is the largest city in Vietnam. So dito, ang naging emphasis ay Ho Chi Minh as the largest city in Vietnam. Tapos, naging add-on or intervening ideas na lang yung population number and the former name of Ho Chi Minh, which is Saigon. So that is something that I hope you keep in mind whenever you are writing, that the writing decisions you make can impact the way you deliver the message in whatever text you are preparing, or even in speaking. Okay, so with that, let's end our discussion for today. Tomorrow, we'll talk about sentences still in terms of rhetorical patterns, rhetorical sentence patterns, and then move on to paragraphs. So we're putting the sentences together to form correctly written paragraphs. So do you have any questions for today? Okay, so if there are none, do we still need to submit yung 1 and 2 lang? 1 and 2, 3 and 4, no need. But you can still access it sa Canvas if you want to review the items. So just 1 and 2, exercises 1 and 2 for today. All right, so that's it, everyone. Thank you very much. I'll see you tomorrow for our session. Exercises before, for those of you who only attended today, the exercises from before have also been published on Canvas. Okay, so thanks everyone. See you tomorrow. Goodbye.
Thank you po.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you po, goodbye.
Thank you po.